Welcome to the NBC Sports College Football Live Q&A. I'm Brad Thomas, joined by Vaughn Dalzell and Eric Froton. We are back giving more picks and answering your questions. If you have questions, be sure to drop them in the chat, and we will do our absolute best to answer them as we go along the show. So last week was very impressive by us. We got a little bit of change back, and man, we were all 3-0 in our best bets. But first, let's talk about the Syracuse game from last night. I feel like when you bet on teams that are, poorly coached or in a transition to being better coached, you have issues. You have a lot of flags. You have a lot of turnovers, and that's exactly what we saw. Did you guys have any action in that Syracuse game?
Yeah, we were both on Brennan Armstrong's over passing yards, which, we knew the first half was going to be rough the way Syracuse can come out at home, and certainly it was for Virginia. I also have Virginia's team total under, so I went even last night. It was definitely a sweat towards the end there, but game pretty much happened exactly as I thought. I thought Syracuse would win by a little more, but, they had a lot of turnovers in the second half, and that changes the ball game.
Yeah, 4 turnovers. My gosh. I mean, the fact that they won with that, I believe a stat flashed on the screen that they hadn't won since the early 2000s with turning the ball over 4 times at the same time for Syracuse. So, that's certainly to be expected, a little closer than that 9.5 spread than we expected. But I just wanted to let you guys know that while I'm not as fashionable as the two of you, I do have my Oklahoma State football shirt on in honor of the Bedlam rivalry going away this week. What a devastating piece of news. This shirt here was purchased in 2011 in the Stillwater gift shop when I went to Oklahoma State, Oklahoma to watch Oklahoma State beat OU for the first time in 8 years behind Brandon Whedon. And I had the pleasure of being amongst the throng of people to actually march the goalposts down the street out of T. Boone Pickens Stadium. One of the truly great experiences of my college football life, and I'll never be able to experience Oklahoma State, Oklahoma again.
That is, I kind of wish they'd figure out a way to keep that rivalry going. Just because you're swapping conferences doesn't mean you can't have an out-of-state conference rivalry game. I'm kind of disappointed in that.
We all are, but alas, so this is my tribute from the Stillwater gift shop. We will be missed, Bedlam. All right.
Yes, it will be missed. Let's get into the first game of the day. Wisconsin at Ohio State. This was the 2019 Big Ten Championship game. Ohio State is a 19.5-point favorite. The total 57.5. And I have an official play on this game, and I'm going with Wisconsin team total under 19.5. I shopped literally 15 minutes before the game again to see if the line moved. I got the line still here at minus 115. For me, this is a game that is going to be won in the trenches. And something that Ohio State struggled with last season was being tough in the trenches. Yes, they have this flashy offense with C.J. Stroud. Now they got Mbuka. They got Marvin Harrison. They still have weapons on the outside, but Jim Knowles comes in and they want to make this team tough. If you try to get into a throwing contest with a great defense, it could get ugly fast. And I know that Ryan Day is going to want to control the pace of this game. He's going to want to grind them out at home. And then for Wisconsin, I'm more than okay with fading Wisconsin from an offensive perspective. Why is that? Because they're so one-dimensional with Graham Mertz at quarterback. Braylon Allen will have to have the game of his life for them to score more than 14 points. And for me, I think that this front seven of Ohio State will do enough to stifle Braylon Allen. I predicted them at the beginning of the season to not have a single rusher over 85 yards and finish the season with 65.5 rushing yards allowed for Ohio State. And I think they are well on their way to accomplishing that. I know you have a play on this, Vaughn, and a lean. So why don't you give it to us?
Well, no official play for me on this game yet. Okay, we're gonna definitely we have plenty of plays across the noon slate to definitely get our money up and then play on this game. But it's certainly not tempting to play Ohio State on the spread with all the success they've had at home against Wisconsin. Then you look at I agree with you completely with Jim Knowles' defense. I think what you saw in the Notre Dame game, Wisconsin could be a little bit better offensively because they played a couple games. The running game is better than Notre Dame's. Offensive line could be a little more physical, but the quarterback position is what's going to hold the Badgers back in this game. So them scoring 20 points, this is probably the way that I'll be playing it too, if anything. I don't know if I want to play 19, but I feel pretty confident. Wisconsin's pro-style vanilla offense is going to struggle to score 20 points. So I'm with you, Brad. How do you feel, Eric?
Well, yeah, absolutely. When it comes to Minnesota's offense, Brad said it might be one-dimensional. That dimension might be just simple ineffectiveness.
Yes.
I don't know. That's pretty much the gear they run in. You saw what happened to them against Washington State. And that Washington State, starting a quarterback in his first FBS start, in Cam Ward, coming up from Incarnate Word, as Vaughn would like to call them, Incarnate Word. But we saw Washington State control the line of scrimmage with a former Wisconsin running back, Nakia Watson, doing the damage on the ground in a cruel twist of fate. So the fact that, they were able to be slowed down and able to be beaten by Washington State on the road, I get it. But the fact, we're looking at an Ohio State team. They get Jackson Smith and Jigba back.
Yes.
Okay. He played a few snaps last week against Toledo. Didn't have to really take the horse out of the barn too much. Gave him a series of 2, and then he was out. JSN back, as you mentioned, Igbuka, who is honestly one of my favorite receivers in the entire nation.
Yes.
I love your lean on the team total. And as you mentioned, Jim Knowles, this Ohio State defense has come together very quickly. We're only 3 games in, and they've been dominant so far. They let Toledo get a couple of feel-good touchdowns at the end, but I don't see Graham Mertz being able to advance the ball at all through the air. I already have the under on Skylar Bell. I was at 36.5. It's down to 31.5 right now on DraftKings. I still think that's solid because of his lack of reps. He's playing in low teens in terms of routes run per game. So I like that Skylar Bell under, and I like Graham Mertz is under 175.5 passing. I just don't think they can do it.
I love that. That's a good look as well. It's really interesting to see. So from week 1, they didn't have Igbuka receiving yards, and now they're putting him up, and they're almost unplayable. But that guy's going to be an absolute beast, and he was the one to watch out for if you paid attention to them during their spring camp. I'm excited for that game. I think that Ohio State has a chip on their shoulder because of all the talk that Michigan is still better, and about that rivalry. So I'm really confident in this play. Let's move over to our best bets. Man, guys, best bets 3-0 last week. How impressive. Like when I saw that we were 3-0, I feel like I just wanted to take a shot. I was like, it's shot time to celebrate with the boys. Vaughn, I'm excited about the game that you're on. I actually saw your play, and I was leaning that way, so I went and put a half unit on myself. Tell us what play you're on.
First off, there's a message above on the screen. I'm not Michael Jordan, but I'm back. All right. This has been the best week we've had in a couple of weeks betting NFL and college football, 3-1 the past 2 days. Let's go, baby. A lot of people feeling the same way I am about this game, though. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but Michigan is going to roll Maryland. All right, let's go back-to-back best bet winners. Now, this seems too easy, honestly, because Michigan has destroyed Maryland historically. The past 6 times they've covered the spread, won by 33 points per game, 29 points per game in the past 4. You look at Maryland against ranked teams, 0-4 ATS last year, got blown out in every single one of them, lost by 19 or more, allowed 40 or more points per game. You just look at this every year. Maryland does very well in non-conference. They get into conference scheduling, and they get shellacked. So I'm going to continue to take that. I think Maryland is a good team, but not a good team when they play the best teams. And Michigan is still one of the best teams. So I got the Wolverines minus 17, and it also is the most bet handle-wise at MGM. So a lot of people unloading on Michigan as well today.
Yeah, the question mark for Maryland will be how Taulia Tagovailoa handles the pressure. He struggled against pressure in his last 2 seasons. What will happen this season? And I think they are able to get to him. So I was comfortable putting a half unit on it. I think the line is pretty fair. But when you have a fair line, if you're leaning one way, I'm okay with taking the way that you lean because there's no half in here. So I don't think that a hook will happen if Michigan wins by 17.
They're in the big house. It's going to be a good one.
It's going to be nuts. Eric, Louisville, you and your unders. What do you have for us?
Me and my unders. Well, I try to sprinkle in a nice potpourri blend. Yeah. But, While Vaughn is back, luckily he's not wearing number 45 like Jordan. He's coming out with the 23 with that play. I love it. And in terms of mine, Tion Evans, 83.5 yards. Now, that's important because in week 2, Tion Evans led the Louisville backfield with 19 carries, with the other running backs only getting 6. Now, he only got 69 yards against UCF.
Yeah.
Despite getting that heavy workload. We look at what happened last week. Tion's hurt. He didn't play last week against Florida State, a decidedly more stout run defense, until they lost Jared Verse, of course, and they lost 2 other defensive linemen from their starters. So Jawar Jordan filled in as the lead bell cow, 17 carries, 91 yards. Very good showing out of him. And also Trevion Cooley. He didn't get to play in week 2. He's been banged up. He's now back, got 10 carries, 34 yards, and a touchdown. So the 2 of them ended up splitting reps. Tion Evans comes back. There's no guarantee that he's just going to be atop the depth chart with his middling performance against UCF, 19 for 69. 69 and 19. That's not going to get it done. He comes into a mature backfield with the other 3 guys. They're all healthy now. Okay, He didn't have that luxury in week 2. I cannot possibly see him getting 83.5. They're not going to give him a ton of work in his first game back either against USF. So maybe he gets 10, 12 carries. They're not going to want to go feed him 20 times. So I see an even distribution between these 3 guys, maybe even Jalen Mitchell. This is a very easy under. I am 3-0 on my best bets. I'm going 4-0, 83.5 on Tion Evans. That's hot right now. I kept it out of my columns because they all move every time I put it in the columns. I kept them for the show right now. Get it in.
Eric is the absolute man with these props, and me, I love my quarterback props. And for me, I'm on Jalen Daniels of Kansas over 62.5 rushing yards. Okay, so I have lines that I circle at the beginning of the week, and I waited for this, and I was saying anything under 66.5 I will take. I first saw the line at 65.5, and I was so scared to take it because it was just at my total. 62.5 is an absolute gift. And before I get too deep in this, I think he's running for over 100. So first, we'll talk about this Kansas offensive line. Kansas is one of the few teams in the country that has yet to allow a sack. You heard that correctly. They have yet to allow a sack. Going against a Duke squad who do not get a ton of pressure on the quarterback. They're about, I want to say, 65th in the country in pass rush. Number 2, Jalen Daniels looks to run. He is effective with his legs, designed QB runs. In the 2 games that matters, 12 runs, 1 for 89, 1 for over 100. This is a big game in front of a sold-out crowd. When's the last time Kansas has sold out a crowd? For me, Jalen Daniels is the X factor of that offense. And what do X factors do in front of sellout crowds? Big games. They put on big performances. I think this is going to be a highlight reel game for Jalen Daniels. I love this line. I was so happy that it was 4 points lower than what I wrote down as my bet line. Getting 4 points with a quarterback running is a ton, because especially with a 7-point spread, if they need the ball at the end of the game, you could lose right there. So I'm very comfortable with this line.
Yeah. Game of the week, Kansas versus Duke. Everybody wants a bet in this game. And I see everybody still riding Kansas. Rock chalk, baby. So I like this one. I literally just placed the bet on both of them. I did throw a little bit more on Eric's, not going to lie, just because I do like the collab backfield and the unders. Eric's been calling me all week, telling me more unders, more. And I'm like, all right, so let's just keep running them back. But I like those plays a lot, guys.
Find them soft lines and let's pound.
Yes.
Yeah, we got a question here from Hindu Kush. Graham Mertz, under 175.5 official play. It may be an official play for me tonight. Eric, is it one for you right now, or is it something you may think about playing later?
Yeah, as discussed, I already have Skylar Bell in, and absolutely no one loses money on Graham Mertz unders. I understand he's been over 200 for a few, but I feel pretty good about that 175.5 under today. Do your due diligence, do whatever you feel, but I like that. I really, really like the Skylar Bell one, though. That's official, and I had that in the column.
We got your boy Joe Knight in here too. Utah State money line I actually love this play too. They're +2.5, +3 home dogs. It seems like a spot where everybody's going to be on the opposite side because you look at the past couple games. But Utah State has won historically against UNLV repeatedly. So I actually like that one. I think that's going to be one of my night plays that I throw on my card tonight as well. Do you guys have an opinion on that, Eric? Do you know anything about Utah State, man? I know your boy Joe does.
Oh yeah, Knight does. As far as Utah State, I actually just traded in our league, our fantasy football league. I traded for Calvin Tyler at the deadline with 23 seconds under the gun before the deadline was over. So he's the lead running back of Utah State. So I do see a little bit of bounce back. They won the Mountain West last year, and they've come out and have just been a complete disaster. But a lot of that has to do with Logan Bonner, their starting quarterback, who last year Logan Bonner threw the most downfield passes in the entire country, threw 100 deep shots last year. That beat Sam Hartman by one throw. So not having him, he had 41 touchdowns. Not having him in there, getting banged up right out of the gate has really thrown this offense into flux.
Yeah,
I do not like that pick, Joe Knight. I do not like it. Maybe I'm square, but I like this UNLV offense. Find Aiden Robbins. Kyle Williams has got a touchdown in all three of the first three games.
I know it'll change your mind. If I told you one person's betting Utah State tonight, I think that one person could change your mind.
All right, who is it?
Phil Still.
Oh, wow. Phil, huh? Well, Phil's ESPN, and Phil has an incredible mustache. However,
can't win them all.
On occasion, I will buck the trend, and I know even though it's a home dog scenario, I can't back it. I'm sorry, Knight.
I have no opinion on that game. It's a tough one for me. I think that line's pretty fair.
Fair enough.
For sure. All right, where are we going next?
We're going to the People's Parlay, and for me, I'll start with this. I was so excited to talk about this game, and it was my early look of the week. And for some reason, the line hasn't budged, which scares me a little bit, but I'm totally fine with it. It is Georgia minus 13.5 versus first quarter. First, Kent State. So all week, all Stetson Bennett has heard about was his ADOT. For those who don't know, that's average depth of target. He has one of the lowest ADOTs in college football. Doesn't throw the ball downfield. For a guy like Stetson Bennett, it doesn't matter. Why? Because Stetson Bennett never is going to be the quarterback that has the Josh Allen rocket arm. That's just not how he plays football. Georgia doesn't, in my opinion, does not have the receivers to push the ball down the field like that, nor do they need to. They have two of the best tight ends in college football. They have a Stetson Bennett who's been deadly accurate and a Stetson Bennett who's made great decisions. But for me, it's not just the ADOT conversation. It is Kent State's pass coverage. Their secondary is awful. In fact, they have the worst pass coverage grades in college football. Georgia is not going to let this Kent State team score, at least not in the first quarter. And Kirby Smart comes from the Nick Saban coaching tree. And what Nick Saban taught was you play good defense and you start fast. You do not let your team in early by being lackadaisical and not executing. When Kent State played Washington beat them 21-7 in the first quarter. I think that Georgia wins this first quarter 17-0. For me, I would play this line to 14 comfortably.
If I told you on DraftKings, there's an 11.5 minus 140 odds right now.
I would take it. I would take it in a heartbeat. I hate the juice. That's going to
be People's Parlay then, 11.5?
Yeah, we'll do that for the People's Parlay. It was sitting at 10.5 on Bet Rivers for around the same price early in the week. But, I was only able to get access to 13.5 myself. But that's a beautiful line and definitely a parlayable piece. Okay.
I'll go next.
Yes.
Mine will be the last pick, actually, so I probably should let Eric go next, but it's too late for that to happen now. So we're going to go Iowa versus Rutgers, under 35. That's right. This is going to be the one to go 3-0 for us, and it's going to be the ugliest bet of the day. Now, I mean, I don't got to tell you about Spencer Petras being possibly the worst Power 5 quarterback, but Evan Simon, Rutgers quarterback, could be the worst Power 5 starting quarterback as well. He threw for 52 yards in their last game. Petrus had 175 on Nevada, which is like a season high for him. Both these defenses are definitely superb. We saw Rutgers struggle to score at Temple in a look-ahead spot, which we talked about last week. And, of course, Iowa's defense held Nevada scoreless. And we've seen a couple weeks now, straight unders for these two, but historically 12-6 to the under in Rutgers' last 18, 11-6 to the under in Iowa's last 17. So sign me up for an under that I see a game probably like 20-10, if not lower than that.
I like that. I sent you my score prediction. I think it got to 24 points.
Yeah, it's going to be bad.
It's going to be gross. I think this Iowa offense is going to be a little bit better than they have been, but they're not going to be as good as they were against Nevada. And Rutgers is just not good.
They suck.
Eric, what's your pick?
Yeah, Rutgers is in a word, yes, not great offensively. And my gosh, Spencer Petrus's over-under for passing yardage was up, I guess, for about 10 minutes from what I've been told on DraftKings, and it went right down. I was so disappointed I didn't get a piece of Spencer Petrus. Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. I apologize. But that being said, my best bet, because it would be, if I had a Spencer Petrus option, it would be my People's Parlay. But my People's Parlay instead is Daniel Arias, wide receiver, Colorado, against UCLA. It is up at 38.5 receiving yards, which is, for a Colorado passing offense, it's averaging, I'm not exaggerating here, 4.4 yards per pass. That is pathetic. And frankly, the fifth worst in the entire country. I mean, we could go through all of it. I mean, 123rd in success rate, 0.57 points per drive. That's third worst in the country. This is a pathetic offense, Colorado. I mean, just put straight up a terrible offense. So they're playing UCLA, who, obviously, when you think of UCLA, you think Chip Kelly, you think about the quick, up-tempo, fast-paced rush offense. But their defense has been pretty effective, too. They're ranked 21st in team performance on the passing side of things. They're only allowing 5 yards per pass. That's 11th best in the country. In terms of yards per play, 15th best. All right, so this has been a better defense than they get credit for. And like I said, Colorado's limping in here. And with Daniel Arias, okay, he's not running a lot of routes. Game one, he ran 28. The last two games, 17 and 18. Okay, he got 4 targets 2 games ago, 2 for 4, 36 yards. Last week against Minnesota, 5 targets, 3 catches, 22 yards. Okay, we mentioned ADOT, as you talked about, had a 6.8 ADOT last week. Yards after catch, he's only averaging 2.5 yards after catch. All right, so he's not a downfield target. He doesn't break tackles and get loose, and he's playing on the worst passing offense in the country against the 11th best in terms of yards per pass defense in UCLA. All these factors, and an underutilized sort of an asset with Arias. You fade bad teams. You fade bad passing teams. This is a clear spot to take that under 38.5 receiving yards. Go out and get it.
I like that play because I had this in my notes. Colorado, the 8th worst team in offensive efficiency rating in college football. Absolutely horrendous. Let's answer this question here from Xavier Jones. They love FanDuel alt lines, any lines or teasers. I'll start with first. I'm not a huge teaser of college football. I do love alt lines for parlays because they're fun. There's an alt line that I'm on already, and I guess is a good segue since we're going to talk about this game at some point. The alt line that I'm on is Tennessee -7. I parlayed that with Blake Corum touchdown. We already talked about Michigan. I think Blake Corum's going to score twice in this game, but his touchdown price for scoring twice was not worthy enough of my money, and I wanted to get that Tennessee line at -7. I think that Tennessee wins this game. They cover the spread. I don't care about history. Anthony Richardson is not the quarterback to keep them in a shootout. And so far, Florida's defense has not been anything to marvel at. Neyland Stadium is going to be absolutely rocking for this game. Hendon Hooker, this is the biggest surprise that I have seen in the development of Hendon Hooker, is the growth of his efficiency. He is now an efficient quarterback. He's taking less risks. He's throwing less turnover-worthy balls. I think this Tennessee game could get ugly and could get really bad because Florida has dominated Tennessee historically. This is finally the team, finally the coach who is not going to take his foot off the gas. And you think that this Anthony Richardson, who has a 53% completion percentage, is going to lead them and march them down the field every game? No, not me. Do you guys have any lines that you guys are looking at in the alt market?
Well, I'll say that Florida's won 16 of the last 17 against Tennessee, and this is the largest spread that Tennessee's ever had. So if you ever feel inclined to bet Florida, I'd rather just take the money line outright in this spot. But I do think it's going to be definitely a tough game. A game where I looked at the first half over 31.5, and that's moved up a couple points. But I thought that was a little low. But yeah, I'm going to stay off this game completely.
Go. I'm good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, another alt line. It's back to Vaughn's pick. I didn't actually lock this in, but I do think that Michigan minus 13 is a fair alt line. It was priced parlayable where you could put it with another minus 180 and get good odds. So alt lines are hard in college football unless you're taking the plus money alt lines, because the reason I say that, you use alt lines a lot in NFL because the lines are so sharp. But in college football, there's too much variance to really say that you're going to have a half a point or a 1 point window with your number hitting. Maybe more so in totals, but then again, teasing totals is very dangerous.
Are you guys ready to get the party started?
Yeah.
All right. It's enough. You know what? Let's get excitement here. All right.
Yes.
Start acting. Let's come on. Get up.
Yes.
All right. We're going to talk about Adrian Martinez and him throwing an interception.
Yes.
Oh.
Let's talk about that. I texted you guys last night, and you guys said sign me up. Both gave the green flag.
Yes.
I mean, do I really have to sell anyone on our Adrian Martinez interception? He hasn't had one yet this season. We'll say that. 66 pass attempts, hasn't been really forced to throw against South Dakota State, Missouri, two teams we talked about they're going to run all over, and that's what they did. But this spot against Oklahoma, great opportunity to throw an interception. And historically, last year, all of his interceptions came against conference opponents. Outside of one non-conference game, they played Oklahoma where he threw a pick. And then you look at 5 out of the 6 games he threw an interception, 5 of those games were against ranked opponents. Guess what? Oklahoma's a ranked opponent. Now they're a conference opponent, and they're the home team and a big favorite. So sign me up. Adrian Martinez throwing an interception. This is one of my favorite props of the weekend, honestly.
Take it away, Eric. I know you have some kind of opinion on this.
Oh, yeah. In terms of adorable Adrian Martinez, we've seen him time and time again throw interceptions for Nebraska. Obviously, a little bit of a different game script here with Missouri, since they, with Kansas State, because they're going to want to pound you. You got Deuce Vaughn in the backfield. And obviously, Adrian Martinez, pretty good rusher. I do like that 35.5 over in terms of the rushing. Like, why not? I think it's 34.5. Like, that's typically where he's most competent. I am not a fan of his ability to throw the ball. Obviously, it's minus 140 to throw over just one interception, which is some juice. You're pretty much 1.5 at that to get that. So that tells you where the markets are leaning. I like, obviously, him to throw an interception. I think Kansas State's going to be behind, which is going to necessitate them, having to put a little bit more risk into their game plan. So, go for it. I hate that minus 140, though.
Yeah,
you can always just risk one unit to win a little bit less as well.
Yeah.
You don't have to risk the 1.4.
That's all good.
I have, when I wrote my preview on Kansas State, it was Adrian Martinez has to take the next step as a throwing as a passer. And so far what I've seen this season, I don't know if he's taken that next step yet.
He hasn't had to. Yeah.
He hasn't had to. He's been in situations that have been favorable. Even in the game where I owed you a pizza, he had just a layup.
Adrian Martinez, we challenge you to throw the football today.
Yes.
We challenge you to not throw an interception today. You will fail that challenge. You will have to repeat that challenge of that video game. But
this Brent Venables defense is it's going to be good. They have shown that they are good.
So I want to segue real quick because I was looking online. Poor people watching, definitely appreciate you guys telling or whatever. But fading us. But I see a lot of juice coming on Eric's player props now, so that's a great look. But Spencer Petrus's line is back up now, passing prop for Iowa. It's at 162.5 yards, which is only 13 less than he had against Nevada. Do we lock that in right now?
Yes, right now.
No
my gosh, where is it?
It's on DraftKings.
No way.
I got you, brother. I know what we're doing. You want me to
We might see Alex Padilla in this
put
game.
me on.
We might see the backup at some point. I mean, that's not out of play here with how bad he's been.
No way. Okay, guys. So everyone watching, this shows you we are real gamblers. We really play these lines and we lick our chops when we see something that's playable. Spencer Petras is playable. Listen, Spencer Petras has 376 yards on the season. He has a completion rate of 48%.
Dude, and keep in mind, this is Rutgers, okay? This is
not
a great offensive team, but
good defensive.
Damn good defensive team. Plays at a nice slow pace like we like for unders. That's what we love.
Yeah. I mean, this is a Power 5 defense led by Greg Schiano at the coaching helm.
I know
Greg Schiano, legit.
He was my coach. I love me some Greg Schiano. Listen, when he played against Iowa State, who I think led by Matt Campbell, has a great defense. He threw for 40. He had 46% completion pass. He threw 26 times. You know how many completions? 12. His longest pass was 14. If he didn't have that 14-yard completion, he would have not even sniffed the 80 total. 80 yards as a quarterback in college football playing Division I.
I want to do reverse ladders. Can we do that? I don't want to do.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
than the line. I want to get. How much less can I go on the line? Is what I want.
That's FanDuel was scared to do that. MGM or DraftKings, we challenge you guys to be the first ones to let us do those player prop ladder unders. That's what we need. We don't want to keep doing the overs. We want the unders.
Yes, ladder unders would be tasty. I think a lot of books
now, so you guys better Venmo me afterwards. But you probably
I'll
be Venmoing you guys more than likely.
Yeah, you probably will. Let's go to our head-to-head, the pizza segment. For those who don't know, I'm actually in Winston-Salem. I was supposed to record at the stadium. Some things didn't work out. I really wanted to, but I didn't want to take away from the content that we're delivering. I didn't want it to be too noisy. And so I'm at my hotel, going to be at the game. Anybody who's going to be at Winston-Salem, feel free to DM me on Twitter at Mr. Brad Thomas. I will meet up, take pictures. We'll share some more bets. But, man, Clemson at Wake Forest. The game is narrowly sold out. So what that means, why I say that, they sold out the original allotment. The resales, I just checked like an hour before the show. We're down to about 15 to 20 resales left. This game's going to be exciting. Clemson is a 7-point favorite on the road, and I'll start this off. I am on Wake Forest. I did get Wake Forest 7.5. Of course, that means I'm comfortable playing Wake Forest +7. Clemson, in the last 2 times they played Wake Forest, 21-point victory, 24-point victory, and a lot of that was done with the pass rush. We know what we're getting from Clemson. Clemson's going to be elite in the trenches, like always. Wake Forest is going to suck at running the ball. Does Wake Forest care about sucking at running the ball? Not particularly. What they care about is being able to exploit a team's weakness if they have the advantage in wide receivers, quarterback versus the secondary. And for the first time, and I want to say 4 years, give me the advantage to Wake Forest in their receiver core with their quarterback versus the Clemson secondary. This Clemson secondary has been average at best, and I think that they will get exploited by Sam Hartman. If we want to talk about an outright win and confidence level, I would only give Wake Forest a confidence level and an outright win of 35%. So I do think the money line is a little fair, but 7 points at home and a chance to make this a shootout against a DJU who I am not confident in at all. I'm going to take the 7 points, and this could backfire because if Clemson starts to get pressure on Wake Forest, then they are in trouble. But I have to trust the efficiency ratings of their offensive line so far. They haven't really been tested in terms of good pass rushes, and that's exactly what happened last season, where Wake Forest was so great, but they didn't play an elite pass rush all season until they played Clemson, and Clemson was getting to the quarterback a ton. I was going to have a player prop in this game if I thought the line was going to be what Prize Picks released, and that was Sam Hartman under 10.5 rushing yards. It opened at 7.5 on books, and I think he does 7.5 is just not something I want, but he's not going to get double-digit yards because I do think he does get sacked, and he's not going to look to run the ball against this Clemson team. Vaughn, tell me why you like Clemson.
Yeah, Sam Hartman's prop's interesting. I mean, we saw Clemson, they got to Jeff Simmons, but not enough for him to go under his rushing prop. And then last week, Sean Clifford didn't really get sacked against Auburn, but he had a couple runs to barely go over. So those low rushing totals, you have to be sure they're getting sacks.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, though. Clemson, I'm pretty sure they're going to get some sacks today. Sam Hartman might escape a couple, throw him at the ground, throw him out of bounds, but 13 straight wins for Clemson. If you're rating 35% on your idea that Wake Forest can win this game, if you're rating a movie a 35%, think about how terrible that movie is. That's all I'm saying. Clemson's won 13 straight here. Last year, they had a terrific offensive showing. 543 yards was the most of the entire season, and that came against Wake Forest. We saw DJU light it up. He had a decent game. Will Shipley, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. His player prop today is only 82.5. Clemson was able to move the ball, and we all agree why Clemson is not a fantastic offense for being a top 5 ranked team. They still look better than last season in some retrospects, but they're not lovable. I agree with you and hear you out on that. But Wake Forest is going to struggle at points. I'm not willing to say Wake Forest is there yet, and I do love me some Sam Hartman, but Clemson's still going to be the team in the ACC to beat. So sign me up. You'll get your pizza today from last week. And so will you, Eric. But Eric, are you taking a side here? Or are you staying out of this one?
If forced to delineate this tiebreaker between my 2 illustrious co-hosts, I will do so. All right. If you need me to, then I will. I am leaning towards Clemson. And the reason why is, yes, the Tigers lost their 2 starting cornerbacks, Andrew Booth and Mario Goodrich, last year. Booth, first-round draft pick. Goodrich, undrafted. But they've still been pretty good defensively because they have, as stated, such a dominant defensive line. Miles Murphy, Brian Brzee. They're going to be a problem, and they're certainly going to get pressure on Hartman, which is a problem because even though they do the slow mesh offense, Wake Forest, they're 125th in terms of rushing offense team performance. That's 6th worst in the country. And let's remember, Clemson as a whole is doing a pretty good job. I mean, 33% success rate. That's top 25. 4.3 yards per play, 13th in the country. 1.2 points per drive, top 20. So they're still suppressing offense. They haven't played an offense as good as Wake Forest, obviously, but with Clemson doing a good job controlling the line of scrimmage, as we discussed, not really having to take the horse out of the barn too much in terms of showing, because they only played Georgia Tech and Louisiana Tech for FBS teams. So we haven't really seen them unleashed. I'm not a big DJU fan, as anybody who's listened to me knows. I mean, I don't think he's definitely not a pro quarterback. It remains to be seen if he can get himself just together enough to lead a Clemson offense in half as good as what Trevor Lawrence did. So despite that, I just think their defense is so good and that they're playing a one-dimensional team in Wake Forest. And when they did that, as stated, the previous 2 years, you got to be able to keep Clemson honest, or they're going to pin their ears back, and they're going to be able to get heat with 4, and that's going to be a problem for Sam Hartman. I'm going with Clemson.
I'll say this one last point to this game. The thing that does scare me is Clemson's defensive FEI rating, and most of that is the value of drives per field position that their opponents are getting. So basically, their opponents are getting solid field position, but they're not getting good value out of that. That terrifies me. And if I were to say that's what I'm most afraid of, is the bend don't break defensive Clemson. But first, I want to invite you guys to play College Football Pick'em on NBC Sports Predictor app for a chance to win $10,000 every week. It's free and easy to play. From first downs to touchdowns, you can win big. Feel free to enter with plenty of cash prizes. Go download the NBC Sports Predictor app. Let's get into the second big game of the day. Notre Dame at UNC. UNC, a 2.5-point favorite, total set at 55.5 points. I hate this game. I hate this game from a betting perspective. I looked at props. I looked at sides. I looked at totals. I lean North Carolina, but do I trust North Carolina against this Notre Dame defense? Not particularly, but I do trust Drake May. Vaughn, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a great game. Depending on how all the noon games go, I may be going on the Notre Dame money line. UNC struggles off of bye weeks. I mean, they've lost 5 straight off bye weeks, haven't covered. And a lot of those off bye weeks have come against, guess who? Notre Dame. Now, I do know it's, Marcus Freeman has struggled here in his first 4 games as a head coach. There's no and if buts about that. But I look at North Carolina, a team I do think is still slightly overrated. They should have lost to App State. I don't want to cry and think about that game, but I look at Drew Pine, and I'm like, this is the game where he can go over his passing prop of 213.5 against North Carolina's defense. So those are the two ways I'm looking at attacking this game. I'll definitely make up my mind by 3:30 p.m. Eastern time today, but certainly feel comfortable probably with the passing prop before I take Notre Dame on the money line.
Yeah, it's about minus 135 right now. It's like I don't like that game at all. Eric, do you have any props or any leans for this game?
Well, actually, I wrote this up. This is a big mover in the opening markets, because heading in before, obviously, we knew about what's going on with Tyler Buckner. This opened at minus 6.5 Notre Dame and got down. I actually got at -1 before it went up to minus 2.5, 2.5 for UNC. Now, I like UNC. All right. And the reason why is this Notre Dame team, we're kind of going on name recognition here.
Yes.
As opposed to, say what you will, but Brian Kelly had that team humming, and they weren't losing the games, that they lost early in this year. When they play, a juggernaut, they lose, but they were winning the games they should win. This team lacks explosiveness, and it's even more sort of put under the microscope with Drew Pine, the backup at quarterback, averaging 117 rushing yards per game. Notre Dame, it's 103rd in the country. 3.2 yards per carry, it's 110th. And it's not like they're throwing the ball much. The 180 passing yards a game, the 2-to-4 ratio. This is not a offense that is clicking for OC Tommy Rees. Now, they're playing North Carolina. Sure, have they been not great defensively? Yeah, you can argue that, but it's not like Appy moved the ball against them. This is also the 13th most talented defense according to 47 Sports player rating, because they can recruit. So it's there. Now, their D has been tough in terms of they're allowing yardage, 112th, 6.8 yards per play. But they're getting, like you said, a pretty undeveloped offense. I think that North Carolina can do enough to beat a somewhat reeling Notre Dame team where they're at home. You got Notre Dame coming in. I don't think they can do it. I think this game's basically, I got it at -1. It's basically a pick. Give me UNC, because I'm just not convinced that this Notre Dame team is together. And I think it's going to take a full year.
All right, let's move over quickly into our ladders. I talked about mine. Jalen Daniels over 90.5 rushing yards. That's at plus 230. Eric. Ooh, wow, Eric. I want to hear yours. Whoa, I was not expecting that.
You weren't expecting J.J. McCarthy. Well, I had J.J. McCarthy right out of the gate at 259.5 for his over passing yardage. Okay, so he's gone back up. He's at like 264.5 right now is where I've seen it. You can obviously shop that, but I like them to really unleash Mr. McCarthy, all right, in this game. And the reason why is we saw the first 2 weeks that he's gotten to start. He's playing against teams, Hawaii, UConn, that you can credibly argue are the two of the worst 5 teams in the entire country on the FBS level. I think that's fair. I think I can make that case pretty clearly. Maybe. And he didn't even – he only threw 12 passes last game. He completed 11 of them. He went over 200 yards, he was throwing 12 passes. And he threw 18 the game otherwise, that he started. They're playing Maryland now. Maryland can score. Maryland has an exceptional receiving core that's definitely top 10 in the country. And we've heard about Baby Tua Tagovailoa doing a pretty yeoman's job in terms of throwing the ball around. 306 yards passing per game last year, they averaged. So with McCarthy coming in here for Michigan, I think they let him loose. He's going to play a full game. Last week, Maryland allowed 369 passing yards to SMU, and they don't have the talent level. Obviously, they have a more pass-oriented offense. That's because they couldn't run the ball against Maryland either. I see this happening in terms of they're going to keep the pedal to the metal. Jim Harbaugh has proven he's not afraid to go and run up games. Okay. Yeah. While Blake Corum will do well, as you have mentioned, I do see J.J. McCarthy. I think Michigan goes and has the kind of offensive performance that we saw out of them when they had Shea Patterson running the show, when they were scoring 40 points per game in 2019. They have that kind of juice in this room, in this offense to do that. I think he goes over 300 yards, which would be a very nice ladder play at 2 plus 210. 325 plus is plus 360. It might be a bridge too far.
Quick question. So are you taking Bell anytime touchdown?
Ronnie Bell.
Yeah.
Jeez. I am not doing that. I don't like taking touchdown bets with wide receivers. I just find it's so much variance. You can't control that as well. I'd rather do touchdown bets for running backs or quarterbacks.
Cool. All right, let's get into some of the remaining bets that we have. Vaughn, this is a game that I was interested in because I want to see if Auburn can bounce back against Missouri. Do you think that they bounce back, or Harsin should be starting to look for a new job?
Hey, man, it's the same thing I told you guys a couple weeks ago about Missouri. They're on the road again, and they're a road underdog again. That's all we need to bet on them. There's a couple bets we're going to be talking about here in the last 15 minutes for me that are just bets that we take every single time this pops up because it's the trend that we play and it's continuing successful, or it's something every single year that continually happens. For this one, Missouri, 1-17 on the money line. Their last 18 as a road dog, only covered 4 out of 18 spreads. Again, that's all you really need to know. But this is a big bounce back spot for Auburn. They're not going to pass the ball much, all right, because they can't. They got a new quarterback in there. They might be able to mix some things up with Robbie Ashford, but the real star in this game is going to be Tank Bigsby. When his prop becomes available, we're going to see what we can do with him. But when he runs for 100-plus yards, Auburn is 7-4, losing to Alabama, Penn State, and South Carolina twice. Very good teams.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
I want to say his prop is around 85. Bigsby right now, I think, on DraftKings. I think he's right around that, which is pretty reasonable, like you said, considering.
Yeah, well, I'm going to look it up because that's I know it wasn't there yesterday when I looked at it. It is live now. It's at 83.5 on DraftKings. And Missouri has a terrible rush defense. They allowed 235 yards to Kansas State. That's what they allowed on the road last year, 220 yards per game. I mean, Auburn's not going to want to turn the ball over through the air, so they're going to ground and pound. So I might be throwing Tank Bigsby on the card here in the next 15 minutes.
Vaughn, I love how you went with the on the road again. You know, a little bit of Jack Kerouac on the road again, Willie Nelson, you know, with the Missouri theme. So the song comes up on the road again. I can't wait for Missouri to get on the road again. Placing bets and winning money with my friends. I can't wait for Missouri to get on the road again. Okay, all right. That's the one song for the first 3 weeks.
Yeah,
this is a good question. I don't have an answer to this. Any money lines that we like? I guess I would. You could say Auburn. For me, this kind of correlates with my next play. Kansas. I have Kansas -7 at Duke. Kansas money line should be somewhere around 280. Listen, this is a Kansas team. I already talked on it. I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but they protect the quarterback. Jalen Daniels is explosive. They have a great coach, but most importantly, their defense creates turnovers. How do you make explosive plays on defense? You create turnovers. You get your team in good field position. Duke has had an amazing start to the season, much like Kansas. But when I was doing my preview of Kansas this year, I was too scared to back their team total over, and I said that they're going to give a lot of team problems. I was wrong. They are not going to give a lot of team problems. They're giving a lot of teams nightmares. This is a good Kansas team, so if that's a money line for me. Do you guys have any money lines that you like?
I am on a money line parlay. I'll just bring up my next pick then and throw it to Eric. But I threw Auburn in there with Oregon today. Some people are saying the Oregon spread is a trap spot. I don't really believe that. I think Oregon showed us that they are a quality team. You know, Georgia did to them. I think we can all agree Georgia's just going to roll a lot of teams. If you heard Brad the past 3 weeks give out his plays, I think Georgia's been on the card every single week. And that's because they continually to roll opponents early. And I think Oregon is going to be a team that is going to be quality in the Pac-12. I thought that Oregon and UCLA were the two teams we should be betting on. Although USC is living up to the preseason hype, I still think Oregon's going to be good. But I'll make a note here for this Oregon game. Washington State, between 2010 and 2019, they covered every single time against Oregon. The Ducks line may have been inflated, yes, but Washington State was 10-0 ATS. Then the past 2 years, what happened? Oregon's covered both as a double-digit favorite, 10.5-point favorite, 13.5-point favorite. Now we get a 6.5-point favorite as a road team. Bo Nix, don't do too much, brother. Run the ball. Kevin Stefanski's shirt from Thursday Night Football, run the damn ball. That's what we want to see. But I like Oregon -6.5. I got them in my money line parlay. I think those teams are good teams to win today. And I think Clemson is another team that's a good money line bet. Eric, take it away.
Yeah, in terms of if I'm going with a money line bet, I like Minnesota over Michigan State. I love what the Gophers have looked like after bringing back Kirk Shiraka, after just mercifully jettisoning Mike Sanford from the play calling duties from last year. He's just terrible last year. Kirk Shiraka's back, and that team is humming again. So with Michigan State, they lost more than I think people really realized last year. And we're seeing the effect of, the offensive line and Kenneth Walker not being in the backfield, be the dynamic back that they need. I think they're going to have a hard time running against Minnesota, even though they lost 2 NFL draft choices off of their defensive line. But I just think that this team is humming right now. 2.5 points. I think Minnesota handles the Spartans easily. Give me the Gophs money line.
I like that game.
Yeah, I'd actually add another team to this money line. Might as well, right? It's a bet I have in the 12 o'clock game, so starting here in 10 minutes. But I am on TCU money line today against
No revenge spot, huh? No revenge
spot. There's a lot of angles to this game, actually. And if you guys watch the promo to the show on Twitter, then you would have heard some of them. But TCU, man, so they lost the last 2 against SMU, but they were the home team. TCU was the home team in those losses. But the head coach of SMU in those wins was Sonny Dykes. Well, guess what? Sonny Dykes is on the TCU sideline now. So everybody that he's recruited, everyone that he's coached, everyone that he's helped out for the past 4 seasons, they're all on the opposite sideline of the team he's coaching against. So I love this, plus the fact that TCU has been a much better team at SMU than they've been at TCU, oddly enough, in the series. TCU's won 9 of the last 10 against SMU. Last loss was in 2012. When I was a senior in high school. So give me the Horned Frogs with Sonny Dykes. Now flipping the script, getting his 3rd straight win on the sidelines, but now it's on the opposite sidelines.
What a great play. Eric, give me a prop that you like.
Okay, we got a couple of them here, but I will go with Eric All, tight end Michigan, for this one. He's currently actually at 20.5, I believe, receiving yards. And that's because, again, it's very similar to J.J. McCarthy. They haven't had to break him out of mothballs. So he's, UConn, Hawaii, relax, enjoy yourself. Don't try to do too much. Don't want to get all hurt. He's out there in the line blocking when he's in line. But if you notice his game log from last year, in terms of his production, he went over this 20.5 yards receiving mark in 9 of the 13 games that he was in last year. When they play against better opponents, they use him and they target him quite often. And again, Cade McNamara isn't running the show anymore. We got J.J. McCarthy in there, who's much better. He's a 5-star quarterback, much better in terms of his passing acumen. It can't even be denied. And I just think this offense is going to be a lot better. So much like the McCarthy play, I like to Eric All simply, 20.5 receiving yards. He's going to be over 30. I think this is a great play.
It looks like Eric All is out today.
Oh, he's out, huh? Okay, no problem.
Transition to another one, then. Give us another one. I love your
The books called something in and said, he's got COVID.
Sorry, I guess the late scratch for Mr. All. I was really looking forward to seeing him get out there, unfortunately. But no, we'll go with Jalen Wright, running back Tennessee. He's at 74.5 rushing yards. And this is something that Vaughn and I bet yesterday. They're playing at Florida, as we discussed, and Vaughn mentioned in terms of Florida's lack of consistency when it comes to stopping the run. They're legitimately 23rd ranked in the country when it comes to their run defense. That is obviously not a good thing when they're playing Tennessee, but Tennessee, what they want to do, they want to throw. Yeah. They want to go out there and put the pressure on you with Hendon Hooker. Now, with Jalen Wright, last game, he had a good game. He had 22 carries. He had 98 yards and 2 touchdowns against Akron, okay? The important thing to know about that is Jamari Small, who was the starter coming in the season, did not play last week, or he only played 2 snaps, played the week before and got, the lion's share of carries, certainly with Wright being in single digits. But he was held out against Akron as a precaution. That being said, depth charts released. Jabari Small went through all the practices in the lead up to this game. That's directly from the coach, Josh Heupel. And he was listed first on the depth chart, which means Jalen Wright at 74.5 rushing yards is the RB2 as he was coming in the season. Did he look good against Akron? Yes. He's playing Florida. This is not Akron anymore. This is big boy SEC time. Okay. They're going to be throwing the ball more often than they're going to be running most likely. And he's the second guy in. Maybe he gets 10 to 12 touches, gets 12 carries, 74.5 yards. That's simply, you're looking at 6.5, 7 yards per carry. That's asking a lot out of the backup running back. I don't think that's happening. Give me the under.
Nice. I see Marty's on an over. Charlie Jones over 105.5 receiving yards. I don't touch the hundreds. For me, it's just something that takes a lot of good fortune or misplays. But do you guys have any opinion on this?
I don't take unders on Purdue number one wide receivers like Charlie Jones. And like you said, I don't like to take overs on receiving yardage because they tend to fluctuate. Plus, they're playing FAU, right? Yeah. Do they keep the pedal to the metal? That's the problem. Is
O'Connell playing? Did they announce that yet?
I don't know about that.
He said I think they said he's gonna play, but not like be kind of limited. But that's what I saw last night.
Okay.
They just want to get out of there healthy, upright, get the win, and move on to the Big Ten schedule. That's what concerns me about this. It's not that they're not going to want to score points. Just once they're up, ease the throttle. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, he's still listed as a game time decision. They said if he does play, be limited. You'd figure they'd want to get in and out at halftime in that game if he does play, but. Yeah.
The second they said he was questionable, I tried to bet his under, but they didn't have it. So
Marty also likes Washington for the house call today, but he's got two of them. Washington laying 12.5 at Stanford. I know, Brad, weren't you on?
I'm on Washington, 12.5.
Too.
I can even talk about that game because I'm really excited, and I touched on this last week. Washington had one of the worst times of possession, one of the worst starting field positions on defense, and still limited their opponents to 22 points per game. That defense looks just as good, but what's more important is they have Michael Penix Jr. They have an offensive-minded coach who has made them deadly in the passing game. Stanford, not very good. I'm not high on Stanford at all. 0-9 against the spread in their last 9. Go ahead and give me Washington minus 12.5. I think a fair line for that would probably be 14.5. I just don't see them keeping up with Washington or creating enough quality. I did hear some people say in some circles that McKee is one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, but I'm not convinced. Not convinced. I'll go to my next play real quick. I'll be quick with this. Arkansas plus 2.5 versus Texas A&M. This game is a shame that it's at a neutral site. It is in Texas, but if you guys could tell, this is pretty even in crowd share. Listen, Texas A&M, I was really disappointed in Max Johnson. Max Johnson is supposed to be this gunslinger. I just think that it's the quality of offense that's being called. A-Chain is their dynamic player, but they're unable to get him the ball. They're looking very one-dimensional when they do get him the ball. They know it's going to be a run. They are not giving the ball in space, which is really stressful for me. And most importantly, their rush defense has been subpar. How do you have such a dominant front seven, but you cannot stop the run? I even look at Rocket Sanders rushing. It was a little too high for me to play, but I still think he runs for over 100. Listen, they allowed something over like 26 first downs to Miami, and the moment was too bright for the Hurricanes. You better believe that Pittman's going to have his boys ready to play this game. So give me Arkansas plus 2.5. They win outright. Anybody have another play they want to cover?
Well, sure. I'm always ready to talk. Sorry, buddy. I'll keep it quick, and then Vaughn can wrap up in those last 2 minutes. Texas Tech. I like Miles Price over 47.5 receiving yards. I was on his under when it was up at 61 last week. He went under that. I think he's too low here. He played 62 reps last week. I do think they're obviously going to have to throw because Quinn Ewers might be playing. He made the trip to Lubbock. And this is what Texas Tech does behind offensive coordinator Zach Kittley. Now, as you know, I am on the under of Donovan Smith. I put it on my column, and a video at 273.5 went down to 260 right now. I do think that even if Baron Morton comes in, he's a better thrower. I don't think this hurts the wide receivers, though. Give me Miles Price's over at 47.5.
Yeah, I like that play a lot. We're both on another play in that game too, but that line is definitely down at least 13 points on DraftKings, 13 yards, I should say. We're both on Donovan Smith, which we tweeted out yesterday, under 273 and a half. It's down to 260 and a half.
Good value.
Yeah, definitely still good value, I think, if you want to take the under on that one. We think there's going to be 2 quarterbacks playing, possibly 3, which would be awesome.
Well, yeah, Shuck isn't back, unfortunately. I wish he was.
Yeah, and the only play that I have left, I just locked in Tank Bigsby right before the shot clock expires here. But if you've been watching this late, I'm going to give you something that you can take along with you for the rest of your life, hopefully, okay? This game, I want to ask you, Brad and Eric, how many times in the last 19 games has the road team covered between Louisiana Lafayette and Louisiana Monroe?
I had no idea. Hit me.
All but 1.
Oh,
wow. Wow.
Great stat.
Listen, Lafayette, 8-0-1 ATS on the road in their last 9. At home, 0-6 in their last 6. The other team, Monroe, 9-1 ATS in their last 10 on the road. At home, 0-8-1. All right, you got literally just play the road team blindly on the spread, and they cover every year for you pretty much. It's almost like your Air Force, Army, Navy unders. So, yeah, sign me up for Louisiana Lafayette. There's some you could take with you for the rest of your life.
Boom.
Cool. Let's answer this question here. Why is Justin Shorter's receiving prop at 42 and he hasn't reached 35 or more than 2 receptions? I do think it's because he is going to get a lot of target volume. He hasn't gotten quality target volume, and they probably will be playing from behind. I do think it is an underplay because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're getting target volume when they're not throwing good passes. And it's not like I don't see Shorters just breaking, getting a lot of yak. So yeah, I do like that underplay there. The only thing that does scare me is he's getting a lot of target volume.
I'm not worried about that. Yeah, 42 and a half. Love it. Love it in that Florida offense. As we've discussed, Anthony Richardson, I watched in detail the last 2 games. Every single throw he's made, and mechanically, he's thrown across his body. You see, as a former collegiate pitcher, you see his front shoulder flying open, and he's throwing like that. I'm not liking what I'm seeing from him, and because of the fact that this is a run-heavy offense. That's what they do well. They are top 15 in terms of rushing, and they are bottom 20 in terms of their passing efficiency. So, when you're talking about that, I don't have the confidence that he's going to get accurate targets. And even if he's getting targets, 4 in the first game, 7 against Kentucky, 5 against UCF, he's caught 6 of 16 targets. That's a 37% catch rate. Nope. 42 and a half under. That's a smoking deal. And I want to know where that is, Mr. Eddie Garrison. Well done, sir.
That they're not even catchable balls like that.
Exactly.
I watch every Florida game because I live down in Florida and all my friends are Gator alums. My girl's actually a Gator alum. So we watch every Gators game and they're not catchable balls.
No. Great call on that, Eddie. I love the under there and I'd take that.
Guys, listen, I want to wrap this up and thank everyone who's watching on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's win all our bets. For Vaughn and Eric, I'm Brad Thomas. Take care.